And a very good morning to you. Welcome along to OTB AM this Wednesday morning. We've got a show for you today. We're going to talk about all of last night's European action and preview tonight's. We'll also talk a little bit about the Jose Mourinho stories that are bubbling up in the newspapers this morning, suggesting that Paul Pogba wasn't his signing in the first place. And so when he forces Pogba out of the club this Christmas, well, he'll only be bringing to an end a saga that was inevitable when it started. Oh, good morning to you.
Very good morning to you.
Liverpool pretty lucky, I would say. They absolutely they battered Napoli 1-0 last night. And at the end, they were really very, very, very lucky.
Yeah, they had to rely on an inhuman sort of reaction from Allison to keep them in the Champions League last night. One of the greatest saves I've ever seen. Well, one of the greatest reaction saves I've ever seen. It was just that flailing arm that can often just be that thing that you just see grasping at thin air as the ball goes past him and the cop goes silent. That was what was supposed to happen when that chance falls to Napoli, but it didn't.
There was one just before that as well, where your man kind of doesn't even hit the target, and he's like, he makes that face like, I can't believe I was so close. I didn't realise I'm only a professional footballer with like 20 years of playing football as a striker, 2 yards out from goal. Kick the back of the net.
But it's quite obvious why this happens. It's the magic of Anfield on European nights, Ger. It's a real thing. You can feel it in the air. It's like the protective spell around Hogwarts during the time when they had a siege mentality. That's what Anfield is like. It's a force field.
Well, there was a protective spell around the Napoli goal as well. I mean, the Napoli goalkeeper played pretty well.
Yeah.
And then every single one of the Liverpool strikers had an opportunity to score and fluffed it badly.
Yeah, Sadio Mane with one of the worst misses you're ever likely to see.
Was that the one like 93 minutes in?
Yeah.
What are you doing? There was, I don't know. Anyway, they should have. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I can never tell if a team flukes its way through a situation like that where they actually should be 5 or 6-0, 5 or 6-1 winners. Like, how do you feel at the end of that?
I'd say you would feel pretty good. You totally outclassed a Carlo Ancelotti-led team with some pretty good players. I would say that you're feeling quite good about yourself. You feel a little bit lucky, of course.
Did you bottle it a little bit? Did you bottle it just a tiny bit?
Well, no, you're into the next round of the Champions League.
I know, but like, If Napoli had scored, you wouldn't have said it was a complete injustice, because it was like, well, you kept bluffing your lines. You kept missing really easy one-on-one chances. I'm just going to kick the ball straight at the goalkeeper there. Great cross, thanks very much for that. It'll be fine, we'll score again.
It is very unusual that a team is in a position where they're qualifying and suddenly they look around and they're like, oh God, we've got like 20 players in the opposition box here. Yeah. We've way overcommitted to the point where Mo Salah actually has to grab the goalkeeper to stop him from counter-attacking, despite the fact that they were in a position to actually qualify at that point. So 100% we're being revisionist here, that had Napoli equalised, the word bottle would probably be the nicest word we'd be using this morning to describe how Liverpool have crashed out of the Champions League. But they didn't. It's the most Liverpool thing to say, but they didn't. They survived. They've done it before, very famously, 15 years ago at this point, 14 years ago.
They're up and running. They're going to win the tournament, is what I'm hearing.
I would say that they're the best place of the English sides to win the Champions League this year.
What about, there it is, game changer. There's Allison. Not quite as handsome as his predecessor, but, they don't care Liverpool anymore about that.
No.
They're not a club just to sign a player for his looks or his ability to sell whatever sponsorship or shirts. Here's what's coming up on the show. Get on with it, says Tommy. Here's what's coming up. Johnny Sexton coming up at 9:10. We'll talk about his new deal, which takes him all the way through to the end of the next Lions tour. We're bringing sports news with Darren around about 8:35. Andy Mitten's going to join us to talk about Spurs and Manchester United around about 8:10. We'll talk about Liverpool around about 8:20. And we're bringing the sports pages right now.
Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to start with the Examiner. Salah, the saviour again. It's Mo Salah looking towards the skies. Liverpool and Spurs march on in Champions League. The Conor Murray is the top there. We took the time that was necessary to get the neck fully right. Guardiola hails Sterling handling of racism debate. Yeah, so Raheem Sterling getting the credit that he deserves for standing up and just being Raheem Sterling, really. Kieran Shannon says Cork has had to again accept its affairs will be better off run by Croke Park. So, and this is the post-Frank Murphy era, and that's his column on the back of the Examiner. Worth a read today because, maybe all the county boards should have their affairs run by Croke Park. Maybe the county board should be less powerful and should have all of their affairs, financial and administrative, fixtures, all that kind of stuff, run by a professional Politburo, and then the county board could be about raising funds, could be about supporters clubs, could be about coaching, could be about all the things that volunteers are really good at. But volunteers sometimes have difficulties when it comes to issues around finance because they don't have the qualifications or they don't have the time to dedicate to it. Right bite, no need for King George Hero to go back to school. Henderson reports Star in A1 condition for defence. So Mike Bite is ready to repeat his King George chase heroics of last year without any remedial work on either his jumping or his mental state after his horror show at Haydock, according to trainer Nicky Henderson. The Times Ireland edition. The great Remainers. If you haven't seen the Spurs goal, then keep your window open with this show and search for it because it was very, very good.
Was it better than the goal they conceded?
Don't know. Was it?
It depends how much you place on Kyle Walker-Peters and his ineptitude for the Dembele goal. If you say that...
Did you see the Rio Ferdinand thing at the weekend? It was like Kyle Walker. Oh, Kyle Walker-Peters, sorry.
Yeah, the Tottenham Hotspur player. Yeah. The guy that, Pochettino had to give a big hug to when he came off the pitch yesterday. I'm of the theory that he made one mistake for that goal. It looks like he made 2 or 3, but really, I think he only made one mistake, the initial one, giving away the ball, and Dembele just totally roasts him, and Dembele is a man in form at the moment. One thing I picked up on, I don't know why he did this, but Caramello Anthony has this celebration, a three-point celebration where he takes 3 fingers and taps his head with them, and for some reason Dembele did that thing last night, despite the fact that he scored a goal and goals count for 1.
Sexton signs a new contract until 2021. Kieran Ratic has picked out the comments from Johnny Sexton. I think it was in the middle of the year, May. He said, Stuart Lancaster's got me obsessed with Tom Brady. I'm reading up on him. Stuart has got me convinced I'm going to play until I'm 40. So I wouldn't be terribly surprised. You definitely wouldn't put that past Sexton at this point. In the Independent, Rory O'Connor's making the point that he is pretty Spartan when it comes to his fitness regime. Allison saves Liverpool at the death. Salah goal proves enough. Even the goal was a little bit lucky in the end.
The goal was absolutely sensational.
There's 3 mistakes in it, and you're like, why is the goalkeeper jumping out of the way?
There's not 3 mistakes in that goal.
The first guy runs away from it. The second
That's
guy,
the only mistake.
The second guy, the
gets
guy's
destroyed.
actually marking
Koulibaly
him.
gets destroyed by.
What's he doing on that side of him? Why is he on the outside of him?
Because Mo Salah does weird things to your mind.
I mean, maybe if you're a good defender, he's not supposed to do strange things to your mind. And you're supposed to be playing for an Italian team. Did you notice as well that there seemed to be a uniform for the Ultras, the Napoli Ultras?
No, I didn't notice that.
They all had black coats and black scarves, and they were all centred together. It was and it looked like they had the same black coat.
Right. Is that a tad worrying?
Yeah.
It's that
all dressed in black.
Italian black shirts. I don't know what
Strikers' slow burn season shows signs of igniting. It turns out that concerns over the reports of his death have been greatly exaggerated, I think is the line I'm looking for about Mo Salah. And then there's the match reports there from the rest of the European football night. Sexton signs 2-year deal which reflects value to club and country. It is a bit mad that Irish Rugby decided it was okay that Johnny Sexton would leave Ireland for a while.
Yeah, when you look back into that was pretty stupid.
Yeah, up there with any of the dumbest decisions that we've ever made in Irish sport. Yeah, it's grand, you go away. You're the actual archetype of you're the kind of bellwether of our culture and also one of the best players in the world in his position. That's okay, we can survive without you. We've got Jimmy Gopperth. We're grand.
We just couldn't
Jimmy Gopperth's a bad player or anything, but he ain't no Johnny Sexton.
But we weren't getting those incremental gains in wages to the point where we could afford to pay Johnny Sexton what he needs. We can now do that, but it's just too big a leap. Where we had a point where we were paying people,
or just pay him, pay the man the money, pay him. Rugby careers are not shortening; they're just starting earlier, which is an interesting take from Gordon Darcy. They've obviously got a picture of James Ryan as a kid in a schools cup match. I wonder how old that is now, but.
2011, I think, is the photo, is it?
Is it?
No, probably
Leinster Schools Junior Cup match against Castleknock in 2011, yeah. So, 8 years ago. 7 years ago, really, from the picture that they've got beside it. And
14-year-old James Ryan.
Yeah, scrawny, and it's earmarked for greatness from that point.
Yeah, well, that is the point Darcy's making now, is that at the age of 14, you're thinking about greatness, you're thinking about making the Ireland team, you're thinking about the World Cup in 2027, you're thinking about the Lions Tour in 2025. He says So he's saying, as the headline suggests, that things just aren't shortening in terms of career. They're actually just as long, if not longer. It's just you're really kind of tuned into that professionalism from a much younger age.
Yeah. And so whatever, rugby's doing a pretty good job of getting players through. So an ad for perfume on the back of the Irish Independent sports section today. They're going really with the Sexton news as well. Sexton's investment in his own body reaps rewards. Camera left, yeah, that's it. And so that's Roy O'Connor's piece about Sexton. The news coming from the Mayo ladies football team, because we haven't had enough about that. Latest and dispatches from Donegal Boyle. None of the 12 players who left the Mayo ladies football squad earlier this year are part of Peter Leahy's 49-strong training panel for 2019. So, are we ready for more of that? Oh yeah, the other thing was we showed you the picture of Troy Parrott training with the Spurs first team in the Nou Camp. Completely forgotten, of course, that the Champions League matches underage, under 16, under 17, under 18, whatever age. It's the youth team. I think, is it under 19? It is the under 19 UEFA Youth League. It happens at the same time as the Champions League. So Barcelona were playing Spurs. How did Troy Parrott get on?
He only scored a goal.
And they won 2-0, so they're through to the next round. They're through to the playoffs for the quarterfinals in early in the new year. So, stick him in the team. Don't heap any expectation on him. Just put him in the team, and then take him out of the team, and then put him back in the team. Never take him out again.
And never put him on the bench.
Never.
Start him in every single game.
Come on, why not?
Like suddenly Michael Obafemi is looking over his shoulder at this guy. That's the situation we're in.
They're going to be a partnership. We're going to have a really dynamic 10 and a 9.
Well, you're really taking us into the new age there. 2 attacking players.
How would that be amazing? Martin Brownie. Rugby's drink deal shows sponsorship hypocrisy. He's saying that loads of people got angry about the fact that the GAA had drink sponsorship when they had drink sponsorship, but now nobody's getting angry with the fact that rugby has drink sponsorship. It is the Six Nations organising body, and it is the Pro 14 company, as opposed to the local IRFU who have the drinks sponsorship deal. And the GAA do have a giant sponsorship deal with Guinness, where it's pouring rights in Croke Park, but that's technically Croke Park, as opposed to it being officially the GAA, even though obviously it's the GAA's money that Guinness end up paying the money into. So I don't know I'm not sure where the hypocrisy is. I'm struggling to see where the hypocrisy is. It's double standards apparently. There's lots of drinks puns in it, which is stitched in. So
yeah, there is one great sentence in it actually, which I'm not sure if I can just grab that for 1 second.
Yeah.
There's, I don't know why it just got to. He says he's not just talking about rugby here. He's talking about football as well. He says, check the FAI website and you will find that Carlsberg are aboard as partners. That's a lot of beer sloshing around the sponsorship troughs in rugby and soccer. Cheers, says Martin Brennan. Cheers to you too.
Wasn't it former President Mick Loftus, though, who was the main mover in the GAA deciding not to have full drink sponsorship? A former GAA president who actually led that discussion. Isn't that actually the whole point, that the GAA as an organisation decided and had a proper conversation and went, okay, so there are some people, he quotes Micheál Martin, who may or may not have been the Minister for Health at the time, and so therefore it would have been in his purview. Somebody from the church, who cares? And it was the IMO, apparently also the Irish Medical Organisation. So, I don't know. It pays your money, it takes your choice, and you decide who you're going to listen to.
Yeah, it's been relaxed over the years as well, hasn't it? The idea of having a pint at Croke Park. You're obviously not allowed the old liberal nature of what you can do with the Aviva, which is bringing a plastic cup to your seat.
For rugby, not for soccer.
For rugby, obviously,
yeah.
But then when it comes to GAA, you can have your pint, but you're not watching the game with that pint.
No.
You daren't sit down because
small TVs you can watch.
Maybe it's just a reflection of the refereeing in GAA. You'll get so pissed off at what David Goff does, you'll throw your pint at somebody.
Well, I think
not speaking from experience or anything.
Hey, have you been throwing pints at people?
I'm joking.
Well, I don't know. You got causing trouble with those Mayo fans that time, so.
No, the Mayo fans were causing trouble with us, I think, is the phrase you're looking for.
What have you got in your
I've got the Irish Daily Mail. Saviour Salah, says the back page of this newspaper. Mo puts Reds into last 16 as Spurs joined them with Barca draw. And Sexton to carry on until 2021 Lions Tour, reads their headline on the contract story. The back page of the Herald this morning is Mo Magic as Reds roll on. Klopp proud as Liverpool survived Napoli. And it's Paul Ince time of the week. This time he's saying, sell Pogba in January, which may be the case if we were to believe some of the reports this morning that Jose Mourinho is trying to put Paul Pogba into the shop window once again. He's going to start him tonight for the sole reason of reminding the world that Paul Pogba exists and you should definitely consider purchasing him in January. Back page of the Mirror is Mo Place Like Home, another epic Euro night at Anfield as Reds squeeze through, while Raheem Sterling is an incredible person, says Pep Guardiola ahead of the Manchester City game tonight. Sweet 16, says the back of the Irish Daily Star. Klopp hails Mo after heroics help Pool squeeze through.
That's the 16.
They're into the last 16 of the
the
Champions League, so basically there's 16 teams.
Never pass up the opportunity to have a Sweet 16, like any vague kind of, there was 16 people in the crowd with the name Johannes the other night, Sweet 16.
It's actually just a throwback to Mo Salah's favourite TV show, which is My Super Sweet 16 on MTV.
Also, Buttes, there's a lot of, Brexit puns. Wondering what they are. Do they use the same ones?
UK one.
Yeah. That's the UK Star, is it?
That's the UK Star, yes. The Irish Daily Star obviously felt that Buttes wouldn't be applicable to us. Mo Ho Ho, says the back of the Sun, which is a good one. Top of the morning to you. Super Salah puts Cop through. It's very simple. Maybe I'm just...
No, that's good. It's good. That's exactly what it should be.
Yeah.
Simple, relevant.
And everybody understands it. I know Sweet 16 was a highly complicated one, which a lot of people just wouldn't be able to comprehend.
It's not. It was just...
I had to explain the very complicated nature of Sweet 16 to you. But Mo Ho Ho, it's December. His name is Mo.
I got it. It's good.
It says Ho Ho Ho.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah.
Lucas to restore.
Not funny. I mean, the best ones are the ones like that are also funny.
I think Mo Ho Ho is kind of funny. It's like, I don't know.
He's got a beard.
Yeah, he does. Well, he does actually. Yeah.
I'm not sure Mo Salah celebrates the arrival of the baby Jesus on the 25th of December.
Everybody does. What?
I mean, hang on. Doesn't the famous song "Do They Know It's Christmas"? No, they don't know it's Christmas because they're from a Muslim country, so they don't give a shit about Christmas. Nothing like a bit of 80s imperialism.
They're really missing out on the Nativity and Christmas Eve Mass. Back page of The Guardian is double delight. Liverpool and Spurs defy odds to march into the last 16. And the special one, says the Daily Telegraph this morning. Brilliant Salah strikes an Anfield thriller to take Liverpool into Champions League knockout stage.
There's a good piece there. Exclusive motorsport giants McLaren and Tour winner Nibali team up to topple Sky. Well, it turns out, that was the exclusive on the Telegraph this morning, but it turns out they don't need to team up to topple Sky. There's only one more season left of Team Sky. The breaking news this morning is that Sky have announced that they are withdrawing their funding and ownership of the cycling team, Team Sky, because it's just come to its natural end at this stage. Nothing to do with the constant stream of controversy that has followed and dogged the cycling team over the last number of years, pretty much since they started winning from... they managed to turn really mediocre tour riders into some of the greatest and most successful Grand Tour winners in the history of the sport. An amazing, incredible feat of achievement by David Brailsford. And, Sky have decided that they no longer want to be associated with that.
This is kind of what it feels like if The Big Bang Theory was ever cancelled. Just a terrible thing being washed away. I would like for that to happen in television terms. It's finally happened in sporting terms. And I'm actually a little bit wistful. It was a fun time with Team Sky.
Yeah.
It was...
Bradley Wiggins has come out fighting in the last few days. I mean, this stuff flares up and flares, and you're kind of like, oh, am I going to sit down and wade through 5,000 words and Bradley Wiggins? But then you're kind of like, oh, yeah. And then, so the doc is now well again.
He's testifying this week, isn't he?
Lazarus, like Tyson Fury, risen from his sickbed in the 12th round.
He was so sick he couldn't Skype into the select committee at the Commons because obviously his infection was so viral it would have transferred over Wi-Fi into the poor MP sitting in Parliament. So he's a very conscientious guy, and it's good to see him back up and healthy and all that sort of thing. Like some of the highlights of Team Sky, like it's got to be Wiggins' wife versus Froome's wife as the highlight of Team Sky. I know that it's technically not a Team Sky infighting situation because Wiggins was gone at that point, but for me that was the number one Team Sky moment, and they'll be sorely missed. Goodbye, Team Sky.
What did Bradley Wiggins' wife say?
Slithering reptile.
Slithering reptile
is what Chris Froome is.
It's good. It has a bang of Harry Potter off it as well. So, of course, some great details coming from Martha Kellner, the sports correspondent in The Guardian, about the announcement that this was happening. So, Sky summoned Dave Brailsford to a meeting, and we're like, right, this is it. It's done. Apparently, it has massively shocked Brailsford. Was informed of Sky's decision to end their ownership and sponsorship of the team last week. He was said to be shocked at the news. After over a decade of involvement in cycling, Sky is bringing to an end its partnership with Team Sky from the end of 2019. Now, the big thing, right, so you're like, what's the big deal? It's a sponsorship of a team. It was the money that they had and that they decided to pump into it, which just gave them a massive advantage. Money, obviously, in all sports creates a massive advantage and inequality and allows the teams to be completely dominant. I mean, obviously, you know. Anyway, so this is one of those stories you're like, yes, let's talk about this and be very careful. It's going to be interesting to see how much other brands want to be associated with the Brailsford magic and the marginal gains, because it swept British corporate culture after the Olympics in 2012 in particular. What was the first Olympics where they started to do really well? Was it before that even? It was, wasn't it?
Was it 08?
Yeah, did they win a lot of stuff? Chris Hoy won a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah, in 2008.
Yeah, so at that point he came out with his marginal gain stuff and business was like, oh yeah, I mean if we just did everything a little bit better, we'd be much better. Like, because
it's true.
I mean, it's like it's a genius kind of repackaging of the most obvious stuff. It's like the best dietitian books are always like, eat less and exercise more.
And you might lose weight.
Don't have any white bread. Yeah. And they sell millions. This whole industry is based on that. So that was basically, you know, good quality snake oil for sale here that's going to make you very snaky. and corporate culture in the UK was like, oh, I need some of that snake oil. It's the best snake oil I've ever seen. So that's it'll be interesting to see who steps in to stump up for the money that it takes to run the team, the massive enterprise that it is, and all that equipment and all those scientists and all that data and all those doctors.
I hope it's someone shite. I hope it's like Betty Crocker or something. It's like,
what are you talking about, Betty Crocker?
Or like Holland and Barrett, Team Holland and Barrett. Have the yellow jersey going into the Alps and the fight, like that would just be fantastic to show that really it's all just about hard work. It doesn't really matter about the money and the power that you wield. I do feel sorry for Dave Brailsford. He's been shocked quite a bit over the past couple of years between adverse analytical findings, which obviously rattled his cage and completely unfairly so, and it all ended up being nothing to Team Sky finally pulling their sponsorship. He's been ashen quite a bit, I dare say.
Betty Crocker make good you can look like you know how to make good cookies.
You can look like you know how to make cookies.
Yeah.
All right, so I should purchase them.
Look what I made.
It's almost kind of a metaphor for the cycling industry.
This pre-made, pre-bought stuff that smells and looks like it's home cooked, and you get all the credit.
Yeah. So
I mean, come on, let's face it. That's actually a brilliant product.
If you add a little bit more cooking powder, if you add a little bit more of something to it, you will have a better result. If you add a little bit more sugar, the cookies are going to be sweeter. It's basically the cooking's version of marginal gains.
Okay, we've got Andy Mitten up next on Off the Ball talking Spurs, the Nou Camp, and Paul Pogba at Manchester United, which is a big story, which, like, once you get to it this morning, you're going to realise that there's been a seismic shift in the Mourinho battle plan. He has decided to go public. He has decided to start leaking stuff. There's a guy who is connected to him, ostensibly, as an advisor who has written a piece in a Portuguese newspaper, which has now been translated, eventually, into English, and so I think there's a lot of people going to be choking on their cornflakes this morning as they read their papers and see what Joe's has done, particularly the hierarchy at Manchester United as their plans are laid bare. So let's wait and see what the fallout from that is, but Andy Minton's going to give us some thoughts on that in a couple of minutes. First, here's what Kenny Cunningham made of the news that Romelu Lukaku returned from the World Cup overweight, a bit bulked up.
I think there's an argument there in terms of the how the game's played at international level, particularly at major tournaments, as opposed to what he'd experienced in the Premier League on a week-to-week basis. I think there is a fair argument there, Joe, in terms of the intensity levels. Generally speaking, international football, a lot more, maybe slower, generally a slower pace to the game. Potentially, he's talking about, as a centre-forward at international level, it has to conserve energy and there's more of an explosive nature to it, international football. Now, if you're talking, I'm not a sports scientist, but for me, if you're putting bulk on and muscle mass, the advantage you get is in terms of the explosive nature of your game, in terms of your ability to run over 10 yards quicker. That's what muscle definition gives you. It doesn't give you an advantage in terms of being able to kind of run channels 30, 40 yards in straight lines 20 or 30 times, which potentially you might be asked to do in a Manchester United jersey, which you would not be asked to do in his Belgium national team colours. So I can understand that to a point, if I'm right in terms of making the point about physiology, in terms of that muscle definition, the explosive nature we see with athletes, don't we, in terms of their body definition. You know, why do 100-metre sprinters have that body shape? It's got to be a reason too. It's the explosive nature of how quickly you can go over 5, 10, 20 yards. Could those 100-metre sprinters, you know, could they run the 1,500 metres to 5,000 metres with that kind of body mass? No. So I think there is an argument there. I don't think you can just ridicule and laugh it off.
Didn't. Okay, so it was dubbed Mission Impossible before last night's game, and I guess Spurs fans this morning are saying it's very much mission accomplished this morning with a little help from PSV. They got the draw against Inter Milan, but most importantly, Spurs went to the Camp Nou and got a 1-1 draw coming from 1-0 down, and Andy Mitten of United We Stand was there to watch it. Good morning to you, Andy.
Good morning.
Let's start with the Spurs performance, because it's been lauded from a number of corners. I see Guillaume Balaguer on Twitter yesterday saying this is without any doubt one of the best performances of a foreign team in the Camp Nou for many, many years. Struggling to remember a team that was so good in so many ways here. Would you go along with that yourself?
Well, Liverpool beat a full-strength Barcelona in 2007, so if I was a Liverpool fan, I might contest that slightly. Spurs were excellent last night, but they were playing a Barca team who, when I looked at the team sheets, my eyes were drawn immediately, not to the Tottenham team or the Barca team, but the Barcelona bench, which featured Gerard Piqué, Lionel Messi, Arturo Vidal, Sergio Busquets, Andre Ter Stegen. And I tweeted, this is an attempt at the world's greatest six-a-side team. However, there were still great players in the Barcelona team. I think two of the players, Coutinho and Dembele, cost twice as much as the entire Tottenham team. But Tottenham were really good. Barca went ahead through Dembele, and I'm watching him most weeks now. He's fast becoming one of the best players in Spain. There's problems with him. He turns up for training late, but he's prodigiously talented. But what struck me was Spurs, they went for Barcelona. I thought it was a really brave thing to do. And I always remember Sir Alex Ferguson saying, my dream has long been to have a team good enough to go to Barcelona away and to attack them. And he finally had that in 1998-99 when Manchester United drew 3-3 against the Barcelona of Rivaldo and Figo. And that too was an incredible Manchester United performance and great performance by an English team. But Tottenham got stronger as the game went on. I thought that Christian Eriksen did very well. Kane had a very good chance to equalise. I thought Son did very well. There was a huge Tottenham following inside Camp Nou. They sold 5,000 tickets. It's the biggest following for a good few years. But there were Tottenham fans scattered all around the stadium as well, because it was a bit of a dead rubber for Barcelona. They'd already qualified. Tickets were not hard to get hold of. And I think Tottenham deserved that equaliser at the end. There was a huge roar when it went in. And you don't get that because you don't get many away fans normally at Camp Nou. But to play a high-pressing game away at Barcelona, and for Barca to then bring Lionel Messi on because they knew they were getting outplayed, fair play to Tottenham and to Mauricio Pochettino.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you speak about that high-pressing game. You speak about, I guess, this collective identity that Tottenham Hotspur have. And there were some amazing individual performances last night. But it is still the irony of the Spurs team when you see someone like Lionel Messi coming on, who kind of embodies this the new thing that is the cult of the individual in football, where Mauricio Pochettino's teams are very much the opposite of that, where Christian Eriksen and Harry Kane might be putting in fantastic individual displays, but it is still part of the collective, and that is really the thing that is the main identity of this Tottenham team.
Yeah, I saw Pochettino's work closely at Espanyol, and that's what he tried to do. He just didn't have any money. And then when he went to Southampton, that's what he did. It was all about the team. And he had players there like Victor Wanyama, who were very effective without being a huge name. And then it took him to Tottenham, and he did quite well for him there. I know he's not been playing so much, but this is a top Tottenham team. I was researching the previous time Tottenham had played at Barcelona. It was 1982 in the semi-final of the Cup Winners' Cup. a really, really dirty game where Barcelona was strongly criticised for their aggressiveness. But that Tottenham team was going for the quadruple: League, FA Cup, League Cup and Cup Winners' Cup. Tottenham, in the early 80s, to me, as a young man in Manchester, were one of the most entertaining teams. And then they fell right away. They were what Roy Keane said, come on lads, it's only Tottenham. They were a team who never won anything. They were a team who would be beaten against the stronger sides. And now they're the second or third best team in England. They've got that team identity, as you say. They felt that they didn't need to go out and spend in the summer because they've already got a very strong team. I saw them completely outplay Manchester United at Wembley in January. But then I saw Manchester United win at Wembley in the semi-final in April, because this Tottenham team still doesn't win anything. Pochettino is being lauded, his favourite to take over from Jose Mourinho, but they still don't win anything. And I don't think they're going to win the league this year. I don't think they're going to win the Champions League this year. But they're a very, very good team.
What represents success then this season for Tottenham Hotspur? Because as you rightly point out there, that is the big contradiction of this team, that there is a sense that they finally made it or something, despite the fact that, as you say, they're the second or third best team in the country. So that doesn't seem to tally. Is it a failure for Mauricio Pochettino if he, say, leaves at the end of this season with still no silverware as a Tottenham manager?
I don't think so, because look what he's up against. He's up effectively against the sovereign wealth fund of a country with Manchester City. He's up against the money of a Russian oligarch with Chelsea. He's up against Manchester United, who are a far bigger, wealthier club, a club who've traditionally been able to take Tottenham's best players, Berbatov, Michael Carrick. So just to be in the top four without patronising should be seen as a success for Tottenham. And the Tottenham fans I spoke to yesterday and last night in Barcelona, they seem very happy with the lot. They're moving to a superb new stadium. It looks to be the best stadium in English club football, and as one or two of them pointed out, it will have 1,000 more seats than Arsenal's new ground, which it seemed quite juvenile, but it was very amusing to me to hear that. And I think, given the way that their club is structured, it's a very successful model. Of course, Tottenham fans would love to see their team win the league, but they don't have, or at least until now, have not had the money to go out and spend 60, 70, 80 million pounds on a player. And with the new stadium to pay for, that doesn't look like it's set to change. I think just Tottenham being where they are represents success. Of course, you'd like more spine if you're a Tottenham fan. You'd like them to win an FA Cup. You'd like them to win a League Cup. It is, as Tottenham fans sing, glory, glory, Tottenham Hotspur. And the glory comes from winning cups. But it did seem pretty glorious last night in Camp Nou for a Tottenham fan.
Yeah, it certainly did. What's your gut feeling on, say, 12 months' time where Mauricio Pochettino will he still be Spurs manager?
I think he would accept a bigger job at Manchester United. United are a bigger club. It's a bigger challenge. Tottenham are a better team than Manchester United at the moment, but he would have a lot more resources there. And he is a climber. He left Southampton where he was doing very well. They were a bigger club, so if you apply the same principle, then he would do that for Manchester United. And I'd say at this moment, he's a favourite to take over Jose Mourinho, and I think he'd take it. I don't think he'd take it mid-season. I don't think United would go for him mid-season, but I think he would take it at the end of the season. And I think it would appeal to the ego and the challenge of any football manager. Can you make Manchester United great again? That must be, A, extremely hard to do, because Jose Mourinho, David Moyes and Louis van Gaal have struggled to do that. But B, what an attractive job if you look at it another way.
Well, let's talk about Manchester United. Let's talk about the current manager, because there are some astonishing things after coming out in the last 24 hours. Eladio Parama is an advisor to Jose Mourinho. He's been writing for Record, the Portuguese newspaper, and he's said some incredible things, like the idea of Paul Pogba and his signing. Like you've written quite extensively about the idea of Paul Pogba being a commercial product as well as a football product for Manchester United. And Parama is saying that Jose was strong-armed into signing Pogba. But what I found surprising was that the transfer value was clawed back in just 6 months at Manchester United. So if you say that what Ed Woodward is doing and that it's all nonsense, well, on a financial level, it's clearly made sense. It paid off for him in just half a year.
That is all true. And it wasn't a Mourinho signing. And as well as being strong-armed into signing him, he feels strong-armed into playing him as well. I think Paul Pogba is a very, very good hugely talented footballer. I think he's a really nice lad. He's been massively successful, but it's just not working as well as people would hope at Manchester United, and we're seeing that more and more this season. Do you blame the manager for that? Do you blame the player? Do you blame the confidence of the player being down because of the manager? I think these are all legitimate questions and areas to look into. It is a crying shame because in Mourinho, United have had one of the football's most successful managers, and Manchester United hoped that they would rebuild their team and club around Paul Pogba. Paul Pogba wanted to go to Real Madrid. That's after Barcelona dropped out, so this is 2016. And United sat down with him and said, if you go to Real Madrid, you will be one of 4 or 5 stars. If you come to Manchester United, you will be the star. Look at your social media interactions when you're linked with Manchester United compared to Madrid. It's miles, miles bigger. And look at how big a star we can make you in the online world. And they got the player because of that. Obviously, there were other attractions. Pogba knew Manchester. The wage packet wasn't bad. It was a little bit more than a living wage. And they got the player. So this is all part of United's strategy in recruiting players. And they feel that they have to because maybe Manchester as a city to live in is not as attractive as London or Madrid. Maybe playing for Jose Mourinho isn't as attractive to all players as playing for, say, Pep Guardiola. So United feel that they have to accentuate their positives. They broke the world transfer record to sign Paul Pogba. And he's had some good moments. He's had some great moments. Performance against City away last season when United came from 2-0 down to win 3-2. But the consistency is just not there. I just can't see a happy ending with the two of them at Manchester United. I hope that I'm wrong, but we're now into our 3rd year and these issues are still the main issues at Manchester United. And Jose's got his perspective and Paul Pogba's got his perspective. That doesn't breed unity when they're breathing against each other.
Yeah, Paramus has actually suggested that Jose Mourinho is going to start Paul Pogba tonight to put him back into the shop window. He's a little bit guilty, I think, because he obviously hasn't played him for the last couple of games, but he wants to put him back into the public sphere, into the shop window, as I say, so that he can sell him in January. Do you buy that? That's what Paramus is saying in the Portuguese newspaper.
Well, by starting him in Spain is a step up from the last time Manchester United played in Spain, because he didn't start in Sevilla, and that was in February, and that was when the problems became really apparent. That there was an issue between the manager and the player. If Paul Pogba scores 3 goals against Valencia tonight, then modern football will be wowed by that. But when teams scout players, they don't just scout them for one match. I don't think any club in the world will be looking to shatter any transfer records and sign Paul Pogba at the moment. I know that Barcelona cannot afford him. I know that Pogba loved the idea of playing for Barcelona earlier this year, but as someone said to me at a very senior level at Barcelona, the numbers do not stack up. The transfer fee would be vast, the wages too. And given how Pogba has done at Manchester United, his stock has fallen. His stock has not gone up. However, I watched him in Russia for France in the World Cup, and he had a very good tournament. I still think there's an exceptionally good player there. It just seems to me that he's probably at the wrong club at the wrong time. Unfortunately for him, maybe it would have been different under Sir Alex Ferguson. And I can actually sympathise with Pogba for the way that he left the club, because he felt that he deserved a chance and he wasn't getting one. And he was vindicated in doing that when he went to Turin. But unfortunately for United fans, it's just an uneasy fit with him at the moment in Manchester.
Yeah, well, it is Valencia against Manchester United tonight. Chances are it's a complete dead rubber unless young boys do Manchester United a pretty big favour in terms of getting that number 1 seed from that group. Just one final question, Andy, before we let you go. 4 English clubs now through to the last 16. Who's got the best chance out of the 4 of them of winning the Champions League?
Manchester City, and it thrills me to say that. I'm sure you'd appreciate not being a City fan, but no, they've got the best team in England at the moment. They've got a manager who's very experienced in Europe, and City have underachieved in Europe in recent years. They've not come close to winning the European Cup. I think they got 1 semi-final performance against Real Madrid. Second, I would say Liverpool. Thought they were excellent in Europe last year, both at home and away. And this Tottenham team, the problem with Tottenham is they don't win trophies. So that leaves one more, doesn't it? I'm about to head down to Valencia now So watch the mighty Manchester United. Do I think they'll be winning the European Cup, Champions League this year? No, I don't. However, I wouldn't be completely stunned because this is Mourinho and he's got a habit of doing stuff like this. But maybe that's my heart ruling my head.
Well, I'm sure Manchester United fans won't disagree with you on that one. Andy Mitten of United We Stand, thanks a million for your time. I appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Just a little bit before he boarded the train to Valencia. So let's bring you this. Speaking on Virgin Media Sport last night, Graham Souness and Brian Kerr got talking about the Champions League contenders. The same question posed to them. Have a look.
Teams have got a great chance. Normally you're looking at a strong Madrid, a really strong Barcelona, a really strong Bayern Munich. None of them are firing on all cylinders right now. Other threats, Atletico Madrid. Beyond that, I think they've got PSG possibly, but I think especially both City and Liverpool, I think have a great chance of going all the way.
It's all to play for, Brian, isn't it?
Yeah, I think much less predictable than it was in previous years, where we were all able to say, well, Real Madrid or Barcelona will probably make the final, and who will take them on, and Real Madrid comes strong once you get into February, March. It may well be the case again this year, but they haven't been playing particularly well. Neither have Barcelona. The evidence of tonight, we've seen Bayern Munich through the competition and in their own league. Dortmund dominating the league at the moment. I don't think they'll be good enough to march on, but the others all have a bit of a chance now this year. Atletico
it's more
will
open.
Be,
It's more open this year.
Yeah, so we've got a poll running on our Twitter as well. Most likely to win the Champions League. You can vote for City, Spurs, United or Liverpool. Obviously, it's just the English teams that we put on the poll because, there's only 4 options. But it's the most likely of those 4 teams as opposed to most likely to actually win it. A reminder, of course, that Virgin Media Sport is the new home of European football in Ireland with more than 400 UEFA Champions League, Europa League and Nations League games this season live. Virgin Media Sport is exclusive to all Virgin Media TV customers. You can also download the TV Anywhere app and stream all of the action whenever and wherever they like. And there was 41% there was the lead vote for Liverpool. John Bruin is with us this morning to help us sift through some of the fallout from the Liverpool game. Before we get to that, though, I just want to raise something that Andy Mitten just pointed out to us, that Jose Mourinho was strong-armed into signing Paul Pogba, and he's being strong-armed into playing Paul Pogba. This is the type of information that comes out, John, in some kind of last desperate attempt by Mourinho to retain power and credibility at Manchester United. If he can actually force Pogba out, then maybe he gets another season.
Well, Paul Pogba playing badly for Manchester United, it couldn't be Jose Mourinho's fault now, could it? Yes, I mean, I suppose at the outset you pay 89 million, 90 million or whatever, you would expect the player and the manager to get on, but it always looked a slightly uneasy type of relationship from the start. Pogba is one of those players who he has flights of fancy, and we know that Jose Mourinho is not a manager that likes that from a player. And ultimately, Pogba's status as this guy who the marketing department is great for social media, is probably heavily favoured by Ed Woodward. That's exactly the type of player that Jose Mourinho doesn't like having at a club. He likes to be the big man. He likes to be the man in charge. And the one thing you would say is that Pogba's performances on the field haven't been enough for Mourinho to look justified in leaving out Pogba on certain occasions. You go back to that Southampton game a couple of weeks ago, the way he's dallying on the ball. Well, no manager at the top level is really going to accept that type of thing. So you've got essentially 2 egos. Who would have back to survive longest? I actually think that perhaps by next summer, both of them will have left Manchester United, and I think possibly that's the way forward for Manchester United, is to start again by getting rid of a pair of them.
I think you're dead right. The only thing is that if you are Mourinho and you're intent on staying, and that, for a change, it doesn't look like he's intent on forcing his way out or the breakup to be kind of some kind of weird mutual thing where actually he forces the club's hand. If he wants to stay, he has to get rid of Pogba at Christmas, no matter what happens, because there's no way that he can limp on for the rest of the season and go into next summer and have that power struggle happen then. There's a short window of opportunity now over the next 3 or 4 weeks to get something done quickly and reassert himself as the alpha dog in the room.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the logic will be something along the lines of you get rid of Pogba somehow. I mean, to who, I don't know. I mean, okay, Barcelona paid 140 million euros this time last year for Coutinho, so those deals can be done. And then you buy a player like Koulibaly from Napoli, who seems to be the big target, the player touted around. And then, I mean, Mourinho talked last week, didn't he, about how he thought he could only get the best out of Fred if he had decent defenders behind him. I think the thing is with Jose Mourinho, it just seems to be he's prepared to sell any players as long as he can get centre-backs. There's a certain point in managers' careers when they start fixating on certain players and just sign centre-backs. Imagine Howard Wilkinson back at... Howard Wilkinson at Leeds United towards the end of his time there just bought centre-back after centre-back and played them across the team. Sam Allardyce used to do it as well at Bolton. Maybe centre-backs are the one player that managers think they can rely on. And I think Jose Mourinho is at that sort of end-game point of his career.
Jose Mourinho loves the fact that he's just been compared to both Howard Wilkinson and Sam Allardyce in the same 5 seconds. Good man, John. Let's talk a little bit about the Liverpool performance last night, because with about 85, 86 minutes on the clock, I was thinking, ooh, this has all the hallmarks of a smash and grab from Napoli, where chance after chance after chance after chance after chance in a brilliant performance by Liverpool have been squandered. And how many times do you get the opportunity to kill somebody before they rise up and go, hang on a second, I'm still alive?
Yeah, it's one of those things where we could have been talking about how Sadio Mane is the person, would be completely... it could almost ruin his season. The way that he missed so many chances, he actually did miss one straight after the chance that Napoli almost scored as well. It just wasn't his night. But one of those nights where Liverpool were much the better team, but panicked because of the amount of missed chances that they failed to put away. And what we come down to, of course, is that save from Milik, from Allison. And I think the thing is, go back 12 months, go back 6 months even. Who would be in that goal? Simon Mignolet, Loris Karius, worth. I mean, Jurgen Klopp spoke afterwards and said, he's probably worth double the money they paid, £70 million for Allison. And I think the money that Liverpool get for going through to the second round or into the knockout rounds is actually around what they pay for Allison. So worth his weight in gold. I think you actually look at the formation, the team selection that Klopp had there. The midfield was Milner, Henderson, Wijnaldum. And actually, that was one of those things where you thought, actually, Klopp thinks his strongest team is that team from last season, the team that got them to the Champions League final. What's happened to Shaqiri? What's happened to Fabinho? Keita's not around. You're beginning to think about, last summer's transfer dealing perhaps weren't as good as we thought they were at the time. But actually, the player that saved them, that took them into the next round, was one of those players, Allison. So the summer has been successful for Liverpool. And, in the time between then and February, maybe Keita, maybe Fabinho can begin to make the mark on Liverpool.
Yeah, I think as well that it's a team who has seen the full impact that Virgil van Dijk can have. Yeah. Obviously he was there, but betting in, and people weren't quite yet fully attuned to just how amazing he has become. And I guess he's become a much better player over the last year as well.
Yes, the thing is, when they signed him from Southampton, he'd spent quite a lot of time out injured, and his performances for Southampton had not been fantastic. Obviously, he's a player who's distracted, but it's only, 2-3 years ago that he was playing for Celtic in the Europa League and so on, and people were saying, well, is he good enough? Is it just that he's playing in a league where he's able to stroll around and, in Scotland, he looked way above the class required to play up there. At Southampton, he looked a promising player, but when you pay $75 million for a defender, a central defender, even Jose Mourinho might worry about paying a price like that. You perhaps don't think you're trying to buy class, and what they have bought is class. And I think those clubs, like Manchester United, like Chelsea, that didn't get Van Dijk, probably regret it, because the command that he brings to that defence, the leadership that he brings to them, I think only in the last few years, Vincent Kompany at his best at City has actually managed to produce great signing, and he's one of the reasons why Liverpool look a decent bet for both the Champions League and the Premier League.
Yeah, I do wonder if the kind of general rising in level around that Liverpool defence is because of Virgil van Dijk. Obviously, Joe Gomez, before he got injured, was right up there as one of their players of the season. You look at Andy Robertson and you start to question, is he actually human? I'm not sure when the last time you actually saw him make a mistake was. He was close to imperious again last night. And it is interesting what you say about the Liverpool midfield, that it is, other than Allison, last year's team really, that Jurgen Klopp is picking. How long do you think it really is until a player has to get bedded into that team? Because in my view, the likes of Fabinho and Keita are every bit as good as, let's say Jordan Henderson at this point. It might just take them a little longer. Is it fitness? Is it tactical awareness? Is it just getting used to the Klopp system and kind of a cohesion with the rest of their teammates? What is it? How long is it going to take before there's kind of the next step taken by Liverpool beyond last season's outfield team?
Well, I think Henderson's one of those players who is maligned. There's something about him that people... He isn't the very top grade player, but he's a decent player. He has distribution, he also has leadership. No one really works harder for the team. And he's one of those players that maybe you take out of a team that they're not as good as some of their parts. I think the thing is, if we take the players individually, Shaqiri's done okay when he's been dropped into midfield in the Premier League in some of their, let's call them, more minor fixtures. Keita has had a few injuries. Now, remember, they waited a year to sign him, and you thought he would hit the ground running and then energise that Liverpool midfield, which at times, perhaps in the Premier League, looked a little pedestrian. But I think there's more to come from him, certainly. I think I was chatting to someone who would know about Liverpool just last week, actually, and I think the feeling appears to be that Fabinho maybe is perhaps a little bit slow, a little bit slower than they expected. The comparison actually was made to Emre Can, a player who left for Juventus over the summer, and that he just doesn't have the attributes yet, and they're going to have to work on it for him to bed in. And actually, if you look at the near miss for Napoli, it was him missing the header. The ball sort of looped off him. Quite a lot of improvements to be made for him. And remember, they didn't actually see him for quite a long time at the start of the season. I get the impression that Jurgen Klopp is not too impressed by Fabinho as yet. A lot to prove there.
The one thing that I would say about those signings not quite bedding in just yet, at least Klopp is being given the opportunity to slowly embed them. It's a team who's winning at the moment, whereas if the team had some kind of collapse early in the season, then there would be massive outcry about the fact that these transfers have not been instant successes. And we just know from a long-term view over football that it does take certain players different amounts of time, particularly when there's a specific style of play that a manager like Klopp employs. So it kind of looks like good management at this point.
It does, and actually, Owen mentioned, didn't he, that Andy Robertson. Now, about this time last year, we were wondering where Andy Robertson was. This player that they signed from Hull City, and you thought, okay, maybe it was a risk signing. You don't know where that they got this guy from. Maybe he wasn't going to be good enough. By the end of the season, you've got this roadrunner figure that completely embodies Klopp ball, embodies the way that the team play, and I think it does take time to adjust to the fitness regime of Klopp, the tactical thing, and as you said, Jer, I wouldn't say they're getting away with it, but Liverpool are employing a different style of football this year. They aren't playing at the full tilt of Liverpool that Liverpool did in much of the Champions League campaign last season, that Klopp employed at Borussia Dortmund in those years, 7 years ago. So players like Milner, players like Henderson do actually fit into that style of play, and you've got time to bed in those players. And as you say, we live in this era where transfers are so pressurised, and players call for transfers. So players who brought in, managers call for spending to be brought in, for spending on their team. And then the problem is that when these players actually get on the field, there's rarely such a thing as an instant fix. Even Mohamed Salah, the goal scorer last night, he took such a fair amount to bed in last season until going on to have what we thought was going to be the season of his life. Though it now looks as though he could be this good, that good this season, doesn't it?
Yeah, that would be a good outcome for Liverpool and Liverpool fans. John, great stuff. Thanks for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Cheers, lads.
John Brewin giving us some thoughts this morning on the Liverpool situation. As we said earlier, Kenny Cunningham was in studio last night, and the biggest conundrum in Irish football at the moment is not whether or not we should, stick a 16 and 17-year-old up front. Although, what's the downside to that?
There's no conundrum to you.
How could we damage their careers any more than rushing them too fast? But anyway, moving on. The real proper conundrum at the moment is whether or not Matt Doherty and Seamus Coleman can play in the same team. Surely somebody out there somewhere has an idea. Step forward, Kenny Cunningham. What's yours?
Well, Seamus Coleman could have played in any team, any club team in the world, and not looked out of place.
Yeah.
He was really that good. Yeah. The defensive side of his game had really improved. We all know how good he was going forward. He was almost a complete kind of fullback for quite a long period of time. He's had a horrendous injury, and he's maybe not quite at the level that he was at that particular time, but I wouldn't be overly critical. And the good thing about Matt Doherty's development that was in terms of we have gone
I'm not, by the way, critical would be the wrong word. Maybe worried is a better word. I'm not.
I wouldn't be worried.
Critical of Seamus is not.
Yeah, I wouldn't be worried at all, because at the end of the day, Seamus won't be the player that he was 2 or 3 years. That's just a fact that happens to us all. But what he will have is an absolute wealth of experience behind him that the older that he gets. So I still envisage Seamus playing a key part for Ireland going forward over the next 2 to 4 years. The interesting question for me is if Matt Doherty continues to develop as he is. He had a very good start to the season. The question will come, and it'll be very interesting to see under Mick. This is kind of one of the exciting things which I'm waiting to see, how Mick potentially can incorporate them two players. Well, ideally what both want to play as an orthodox right back, how he's going to incorporate them both into the team. Now, Mick played Matt. He actually bought him towards the bottom from Bohemians and actually played him as a left back, predominantly right-footed, people will say, but one of our best ever left backs in an Ireland Jays, and the best players I ever played with Denis Irwin. Although two-footed for me, Denis predominantly right-footed, but very effective, playing almost all of his career in that left back position.
All right, that was an interesting one. We hadn't heard that before. Potential left back. Darren, how are you?
I'm very well this morning, Ger.
What's the crack?
I'm not as good as Liverpool fans, though. They're very happy. The Liverpool fans in your life will be delighted this morning. It was a special night at Anfield as they advanced to the last 16 of the Champions League. The Reds edged a tight game with Napoli 1-0, with Mo Salah scoring the only goal of the game in the 34th minute. The result sees Jurgen Klopp's side finish second in Group C, behind Paris Saint-Germain, who won 4-1 against Red Star Belgrade. The roar at Anfield after Salah's goal heard around the world.
Salah's rolled his way in and he's got support. Salah in! Didn't need anybody else! He never does on a night like this!
فينالدوم منر إلى محمد صلاح، دوران جميل يعدي ويفوت هوبا، لا 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 عملها وكلمته قالها، العيون تراقب، العيون تشاهد.
James Milner, Mo lo estaba tomando, Mo que está habilitado, vino Mo, adelantó la pelota, vino con el toque atrás, gol. Constantly switching. Salah being told play on, and Salah has scored. Inevitably, Mo Salah breaks the deadlock.
The goal Mo scored, what a goal, unbelievable. And the save Ali made, I have no words for that. So that was of course the lifesaver tonight. And I'm really proud of what the boys did tonight. Could fill it in bottles again. So this game was just amazing. It was outstanding, unbelievable. The boys played their whole heart on the pitch. I'm not sure if the right saying, but it's just that they were, with each part of their body, they were in that game. Our offensive defending, our pressing was some of the best I ever saw.
Wow, high praise.
That was for the Liverpool fans in your life. I'd say they enjoyed that minute of continental commentators losing their minds.
Do you know where they're all from?
I don't. Just a random collection of the goals heard around Europe. Yeah. We did recognise Ger Canning in there. Ger Canning and BT were the only two I recognised.
I was watching the Spurs game on a stream from Canada last night, and it was like a Bleacher Report live thing, and for the first time ever I've actually heard commentators kind of open up in the middle of the game, one of them was like, okay, it's time to admit this. I'm a massive Spurs fan.
Oh, no.
And it ended up turning into this back and forth between them, as in like, haha, you're getting knocked out of the Champions League. And then when Spurs equalises, like, screw you.
Right.
And goes absolutely crazy.
Was it any good?
Well, look, do you like American/Canadian accents commentating on football?
Was the play-by-play the Spurs fan?
Both were.
Both were?
Oh, sorry, the Spurs fan was no, I think they were both kind of play-by-play. It was like two lads having a discussion.
Okay.
It was very unusual.
And what was that experience like? Ignoring the accents.
It was...
Park your racism for a moment.
It was like, like listening to the football show on Off the Ball. It was very, very good, insightful, but it kind of felt like there was two different things happening, a match and two guys having a conversation.
Yeah. Did you miss stuff?
Not
You were
really.
watching it though?
Well, no, I had Liverpool on, and I kind of had that turned up so that whenever a voice
rose,
elevated, I was like, oh, what's going on here? So kind of a high-pitched Canadian squeal was kind of what piqued my interest quite often. But that was that. Just on the Liverpool fans, like just kind of again, you got to congratulate them at every available opportunity.
You hate Liverpool fans. I
don't hate Liverpool fans. Congratulating them.
I know you bang on about like how they're going to be insufferable every time something good happens to them. Like
no,
you subtly, not so subtly.
They're very lucky. They're the only.
Slip it in.
They're the only club in the world that have legitimate magic, like actual force field of magicians that kind of cast a spell around their stadium. If my football club had that, I'd be very lucky as well.
He hates Liverpool so much. It's not even funny.
I don't know why.
Not so much history.
He can't even hide his disdain.
They've literally done nothing to you in your entire life.
No, I'm very jealous. It's probably what
like even the history dig there. Oh no, it was so pointed.
But they would go back all the way to the 20th century.
Focus on the Spurs game now. The Tottenham boss Mauricio Pochettino delighted to achieve mission impossible by earning a point in Barcelona. They helped them qualify for the last 16 of the Champions League. Lucas Moura scored a late equaliser in the Nou Camp to secure a 1-1 draw. Pochettino believes it's an historic moment for the club.
So proud, and we are on the next stage. I think it's massive achievement for the club. We are so happy for our fans that we're here, happy for the fans that are in London and around the world. I think it's a massive boost for the club. I remember always after Eindhoven, no one believed in us. All say mission impossible, but we are here. And we are on the next stage. I think it's massive achievement for the club. We are so happy for our fans.
It's like peak moment of joy going away to the Nou Camp and staying within the competition. Andy Mitt was like, yeah, I mean Pochettino probably would take the Man United job. It's a much bigger job, much bigger club. It's like poor Spurs.
Yeah.
There's further bad news for Spurs actually this morning. Lord Sugar has confirmed to Piers Morgan on Good Morning Britain that he will leave the country should Jeremy Corbyn become Prime Minister. So a bitter blow to any Tottenham Hotspur fans waking up with a smile on their face this morning.
This is meant to be a Brexit-free place on. This is meant to be a haven from Brexit talk.
So that's what I thought too.
You've just brought us there. Man United and Man City are already sure of qualification ahead of their last group games tonight. United need a win away to Valencia, along with an unlikely victory for Young Boys at home to Juventus if they're to progress as the Group H winners. City complete their Group F campaign with the visit of Europa League hopefuls Hoffenheim to the Etihad Stadium. Well, a Chelsea fan has denied racially abusing Raheem Sterling. The club have suspended 4 people from attending their matches pending further investigation into allegations of racial abuse. One man, pictured screaming at Sterling in a photo that was widely circulated on social media, was tracked down by the Daily Mail, and he told them he is deeply ashamed of his behaviour but denied making a racist remark. He denied calling Raheem Sterling a black expletive, but instead claims he called him a mank expletive. The 60-year-old says he's lost his job in Chelsea season ticket and added, I offer Sterling an unreserved apology. Even if it wasn't racist, it's not right what I said. The PFA have said that negative press coverage of Sterling emboldens racist rhetoric, adding the former Liverpool player is often singled out.
Did the Daily Mail track him down by just going down to their comment section?
I'm not sure how they tracked him down, but they found out he's a 60-year-old father of 2.
It's like you do have to feel sorry for the guy, just like the guy who accidentally threw banana skin at Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang last week. Really, they're the guys our hearts need to go out to this morning.
They're the victims today instead of Darren.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
You and...
how did I become the punching bag here? What did I do here?
I love the way that your tweet about Johnny Sexton yesterday became battleground. It was like...
What was your tweet about Johnny Sexton?
I suggested Johnny Sexton might be one of the best Irish players of all time, and a number of people...
He listed off his achievements and put the nice little... There. So, tick, 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 tick. Grand Slam, beat All Blacks in Dublin, Series winner of Australia, World Player of the Year, Leinster's record point scorer, 6 Nations 3 cups, European Cup 4 cups, Pro 14 3 cups, Challenge Cup. What's the Challenge Cup?
Challenge Cup is.
European. Yeah. And Lions tour is two lions, and Johnny Sexton goat, and then got savaged. Absolutely savaged.
What were people saying?
Oh, it's team games, Aaron.
It's a team game. He's not even the greatest Irish player of all time. People are just angry on Twitter. Twitter is an angry place.
The anger is on. I'm telling you, the anger is on.
Not a big fan of Twitter at the moment. Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola, let's hear from him.
Oh, blank stares all around.
He says racism is rampant in society and not just confined to football.
The problem is that racism is in everywhere. The people we focus in football, it's not just in football, unfortunately. If it was just in football, we'll be safe, but the racism is in everywhere. What happened today in immigrants and refugees all around the world, how we treat them, when once in our lives we were refugees, our grandfathers or great-grandfathers and mothers were refugees, how we treat the societies, unfortunately is in everywhere. That's why you have to fight and every day. Raheem is an incredible human being. So it's tough to understand today, what happened years ago about the position for the whole history, for the black people. So, and we have to protect them, we have to protect the how equal we are all together.
Pep's the snappy dresser all the same. That's a good picture we had over him there. But he's totally dead right about Raheem Sterling. So the anger is on, right? We had David Bentley was in studio recently. I'd say about 2.5 years ago. He was over doing that playing with Cross McGlenn thing. Remember he did came over and played for Cross McGlenn. It was a reasonable. It was an interesting interview and seemed quite thoughtful for somebody who you thought was like David Bentley, who was most famous at that point for spraying water over Harry Redknapp. So
I did a free kick masterclass with him and he hated it. He played in Russia for a while. I think he went to Rostov.
Oh, yeah.
And he complained about Dublin being colder than Russia. He kind of did the video part of it and it's like, okay, now show the journalists how to take free kicks. Like, I can't be asked, mate. I just want to go inside and warm up. Nice fella, but had absolutely no time for that free kick masterclass.
Well, he was happy enough to talk to us that day about, life as football. And he was like, football, it's really changed, The anger is on. And I was like, that's pretty deep. I mean, it doesn't really make that much sense, but I know exactly what you're saying. Everybody's always angry about everything all the time. Those fans in the front row, the anger is on. And I led the show that night. I was like, here, we had this interview coming up. It's pretty interesting here. It's and then I realised it was his London accent. The hanger's on.
Oh, no, Jer.
The anger's on.
The anger's on.
The hanger's on is quite a deep phrase as well.
Not as deep as the anger is on. The anger is on is real Dark Knight stuff.
I'm going to keep the anger is on as a thing. It's going to be a new slot on this show. God damn it, I'm going to inject this into the consciousness of the last thing I do.
The anger is on sounds like a Liam Gallagher tweet at 4 a.m.
LGX. The future of Team Sky is in doubt after the backer announced they were pulling out this morning. Sky says it will end its long-standing involvement in professional cycling at the end of 2019. The intention of Sky is to find a new sponsor and owner to take over before the 2020 season, but it remains to be seen whether there will be a viable buyer. It will bring to an end the British broadcaster's investment in the team, which has totaled more than £150 million across the last 10 years. The team principal, Dave Brailsford, was informed of the decision to end the ownership and sponsorship of the team last week. Sky News says he was shocked at that decision to pull the plug. Team Sky won 6 Tour de France titles in 7 years. The team, though, has been in the spotlight over the last 18 months after MPs in the British House of Commons claimed Team Sky manipulated the anti-doping system to allow the administration of performance-enhancing drugs in the lead-up to the 2012 Tour de France. The Guardian concluded that the remarkable drugs report shattered Team Sky's illusion of integrity. Their damning assessment followed an inquiry by the Digital Culture, Media and Sport Select Committee. They found that the team's former medic, Dr. Richard Freeman, had not kept proper paperwork of the prescription drugs he gave to riders. Investigators also discovered that Dr. Freeman kept all records on a laptop he claimed was stolen while on holiday in Greece in 2014. They were also unable to answer questions about the contents of a package delivered to Bradley Wiggins at a race in 2011. The committee found that Team Sky had crossed an ethical line. Well, finally, rugby. Johan van Graan says he is gutted that Chris Farrell, for his latest injury setback, the Irish centre forced out of the Champions Cup clash with Cast at Thomond Park last weekend. He suffered a serious knee injury for Ireland against Wales last February in his first start since that setback. He put in a really solid display in a Pro 14 win against Edinburgh. A week later, though, a quad setback occurred. The province still unsure how serious that strain is or how long he will be sidelined for. While Maddie Kenny's reign as Dublin senior hurling manager has got off to the perfect start. Rain indeed the key word, as the conditions were atrocious. The Dubs, though, were comfortable 221 to 116 winners over Carlow in the Walsh Cup last night. John Heatherton chipped in with 10 points for the boys in blue.
You wouldn't send a dog out in it, but you'd send the hurlers out. Darn good stuff. Leia Healthcare, the official health and wellbeing partner to Leinster Rugby, released episode 1 of a 3-part online series featuring World Rugby Player of the Year Johnny Sexton yesterday. The Sexton series takes an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at Johnny from his playing career to his mindset around life outside of rugby. Here's the first episode.
Captaincy is something that I think I've always, secretly wanted. I didn't go around shouting from the rooftop, but it's an honour, so you gotta aspire to hope that the guys around you want you to be captain. If the majority of the team respect you in that way, it's a big privilege. So I was delighted to take it on, but it's something that I've probably always done anyway. Not try to lead, but try to be myself, and if that looked like leading, well then that's good. As a young guy growing up, I always wanted to play for Leinster and be the guy that made a difference, and to have 4 European titles and be level with Toulouse. If someone had told me that when I was starting off for Leinster, I would have bit their hand off. Getting brought to Lansdowne Road, when I was a young guy with my dad, and I remember he was the one that said, "You'll play for Ireland one day." And I look back at that now, and it probably did hit home then that was maybe a big moment. But I suppose there's loads of those moments. There's moments where you thought you're never going to play for Ireland, even as when I was 20, 21. Looking at that time, I was seeing all my mates playing for Ireland and guys that were younger than me playing for Ireland, and I wasn't nowhere near it. So you doubt yourself a lot as well. I think athletes always have doubts that keep you motivated. I think the pressure that's on us sometimes takes a bit of the fun out of it, if I'm being honest. When you're preparing to play a match on Saturday, you're probably great fun early part of the week, you're training hard, you're thinking about the game, but it's not as much pressure. And then towards the back end of the week, you wonder why you play. You've got the nerve because you know that in 5 minutes time it's going to be like the hardest thing you've done since last week. But yeah, pressure is something that I think you get better at dealing with the more experience you get. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the pressure's even more when you're older because you've only got a few more chances at it. You want to make the most at the end of your career. You want to win as much as you can before you finish up. So probably torn between the two.
That's the first episode of the Sexton series, taking an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at Sexton from his playing career to his mindset around life outside of rugby. The captaincy thing, it's interesting that in rugby it's such a big thing that he wanted it. That I haven't heard him talk about that before. I kind of always wanted to be captain, but you can't talk about it. It's like a... Whereas in GAA, I think it's different. This is a story that we're going to talk about now. We've long talked about the notion that the county champions providing the captain for the county team makes very little sense in the modern world, where you have the opportunity to turn the captaincy into something meaningful and totemic and spiritual for a group. And yet, the two most successful counties in the history of the sports, in hurling and in football, are like, this is all bollocks. Let's just get the lads, whoever the county champions, there needs to be some benefit to win. Yeah, you can have a guy, not guarantee him a place in the team, and he might end up shuffling up the steps in September, as it was, going, yeah, this is great, I have a speech ready, didn't get a minute's game time, feel a bit of a fraud. But look, so what do you think?
I've said it before here, and I'm highly against this idea of giving the player the captaincy just because he happens to be the representative from the club that won the county championship. And it's become more pronounced in Kerry over the last couple of seasons because Dr. Crokes' representation in the Kerry team hasn't been as pronounced since Gooch has left the panel. Obviously Johnny Buckley stepped away last year and Fiona Fitzgerald couldn't get into the team. So you had a situation where two guys in their first year, three guys on some occasions, all in their first year, were switching the captaincy between them. So you had Shane Murphy, the goalkeeper, you had Micheál Burns outfield, and Gavin White was the other Crokes player, really, who got a lot of game time. He never had the captaincy, but Micheál Burns and Shane Murphy both picked it up, both in debut seasons. And it makes a complete mockery of the idea of a captaincy, but if you believe that the whole idea of being a captain has no bearing on a game of Gaelic football, then fair enough.
And what bearing does it have? You go up for the toss. After that, there's no extra privilege. The referee doesn't feel like he has to speak to you. You're not doing anything. You're not having conversations. You're not relaying in any information. You've got no role other than your existing role. So what's the point of it?
Well, I can hold up the example of Dublin here. How important has Stephen Cluxton become for Dublin since he's become captain versus before when he was captain? And maybe there is no difference, but maybe having that focal point, that leader on the pitch, is a big thing. We hail the example of Dublin being a team of thinkers, a team of people who can figure out a situation when they're in a bit of trouble. An on-field captain, a person you can look to, is a little bit important in that. I know he's at the back of...
Yeah, come on, but
he is ultimately kick-starting every single attack you have. But can I just read... The reason why this is something we want to talk about this morning is because this was spoken about at the Kerry Convention, and it's been met with very, very strong opposition. I'm just going to read some quotes from Owen Cormacan's piece in the Examiner this morning. So, Dr. Crokes, naturally, are one of the clubs against changing the tradition of Kerry captains coming from the county champions. So Matt O'Neill, he received a hefty round of applause when speaking in favour of maintaining the status quo. This is what he said. I've heard several times about Stephen Cluxton with regard to this idea of management selecting a captain and how he is a great mentor. We are not Dublin, nor does Kerry ever want to be Dublin. Let Dublin do what they want to do with their captaincy, and let us be Kerry, and let us keep our traditions. Once you throw tradition away, it is very hard to get it back.
You need to do that down the lens of the camera as a statement of screw you, Dublin, and your captaincy, and who do you think you are? Come on. A bit of Kerry pride there, come on.
We are not Dublin, nor do we ever want to be a Dublin. It's true. But
half-hearted.
What?
Half-hearted.
Well, because I obviously don't agree with what he's saying, so I'm not going to...
What club's it from?
Dr. Crokes. So you can see why he's got a vested interest in this. He wants his club mates to get the captaincy quite a bit, and Dr. Crokes happened to win the county championship quite a bit.
And do the clubs decide? That's it. It's like it's not left to the manager to go, this year we're going to give it to the county champions, next year we're going to give it to the player who we believe will benefit the most from it.
Well, I'm not actually sure what would happen if they went against the directive of the county board, which
you get sacked.
Probably would.
They'd come to training and they'd find that everything's locked.
Well, speaking of locked, Fitzmaurice locked the gates to Fitzgerald Stadium, and he managed to keep his job for a few years after that. So perhaps if you do go against the traditions, which makes sense, like not allowing randomers in to watch you train, or not picking a captain because he's a county champion, maybe those things make sense. Like we've taken the piss out of marginal gains already on the show this morning, but sometimes marginal gains do exist. Sometimes having a captain who feels comfortable being a captain is a good thing. How would you feel if your first appearance for Kerry came as a captain? How awkward would you feel?
I don't think
Paul Burns literally said that it felt awkward.
Okay, you have a chat with them beforehand and go, this might feel a bit awkward, don't worry about it, we're only interested in your game. Because you know, and we know, that the leadership has to come from everybody in this team. We expect you to be a leader whether or not you're wearing that armband or not.
Does it really though? Is that really the case? So you can talk about that idea. You can talk about the idea as I'm going in. It's only my first year, only my second year, whatever it may be, playing with Dublin or Kerry. I'm going to be a leader. But there are levels to it.
Sure. But by not giving the armband to whoever on that Kerry team is probably the natural leader, does it matter? Is that player suddenly like, I don't have the authority to ball my teammates out of it or to encourage them actively the way I would do anyway? Like, is David Moore the captain, really?
I would say David, there would be a selection between David Moore and Paul Ganey, Peter Crowley. There would be three names that come to the top of my head.
One thing, right? It is possible that if you turn it into something, it becomes coveted and it becomes the type of thing that alpha characters,
which a lot of athletes happen to be,
decide that they want, right? To the detriment of the team ethos. I'm not sure David Beckham was the best captain that England ever had. I'm not sure him being
that's the manager's fault.
I'm not sure that him being made captain and elevated above other players in that team was the right thing for that group. And so, and the England captain is a perfect example of this. It becomes like I am the England captain in football, where again, it's irrelevant. The captaincy is irrelevant. Roy Keane would have been Roy Keane at Manchester United, irrespective of whether or not he had that armband, and indeed he was.
But when it does become relevant is when you say to Roy Keane, sorry, you're not Ireland captain. Arsenal won the Premier League this season. We've got this little kid from Arsenal who's Irish qualified. He's actually the captain. Sorry, Roy.
I mean,
Like, how weird would that be for Roy Keane?
Well, I'd like to, it doesn't exist.
But it matters. It matters to the players, doesn't it? Like, it would matter to Roy Keane if he was told, Manchester United didn't win the Premier League.
But if you get the captaincy decision wrong, or if you turn it into a competition between players,
that's a good thing. Competition between players is a good thing.
On the same team.
That's it. The very thing that's driven Dublin to be one of the best
squads. You want your midfielder to be competing with your full forward for like the glory. It's like, so let's just put it in the context of Dublin. Fenton's through 1-on-1 and he looks up and there's Kieran Kilkenny and he's like, screw you, you're the captain, I'm going to take the goal. That's never going to happen.
Well, obviously that's never going to happen.
But you're saying competition between players for the captaincy role is a good thing. It isn't.
Of course it is.
Absolutely it isn't.
It is, of course.
What if it enters their mind?
Anything is a good thing.
No.
It drives competitiveness between players
and then when you name one, everybody else is pissed off.
Okay, so say Michael Darragh Macaulay is looking around and he's like, okay, I'm the second choice midfielder here, Brian Fenton is number 1. I need to usurp Brian Fenton as number 1 midfielder, therefore I'm not passing him the ball ever.
No.
It applies to every little thing. Paul Mannion is like, Con O'Callaghan's playing well at the moment, he's true on goal. I'm not going to let him jump above me in the pecking order.
No.
It applies to everything, not just the captaincy.
No,
it's a ridiculous notion that competition doesn't benefit an entire squad in terms of their
competing
mentality.
for places.
Yes.
That's a natural thing to do.
Well,
competing for this nonsensical, idiotic
it's
idea.
It's still a competition, and the competition doesn't change.
It's a made-up competition for a prize that has no value.
But your point about them not passing the ball to one another because they're at stake, the captaincy's at stake, positions are at stake. It's a nonsense point to say that would happen. Like, it really is.
I'm saying that there are clearly within teams the possibility to create a division over who gets the captaincy, what the criteria are, what the expectations on the role are, and ultimately it is a nothing role in GAA in particular. So this, I think, is complete bollocks.
Do you not think that there's like divisions there anyway, coming from different clubs? Do you not think there might be a division?
How do you heal those? By making one faction a captain and the other faction saying, sorry lads, you're second-class citizens here.
Or if you look at, say, I don't know, you look at the county finalists here. If there happened to be any bad blood between Dr. Crokes and Dingle, for example, and...
there was the row.
Well, that was in the semi-final. But let's pretend that it happened in the final between Crokes and Dingle. And Crokes win the game and they've got the captaincy. Does that not fuel the division between them because there's a row?
No, because the captaincy doesn't matter.
But if not...
Because everybody knows...
Then you can take the captaincy away from the situation and give it to somebody else away from those two parties. You can do what you want. You're trying to turn this into... You're utilising the captaincy in a really insidious way. No,
I'm saying that it's open for... You want people to aspire to this nonsensical, irrelevant role.
It's not irrelevant. It doesn't have a huge bearing. I'm not saying it's going to win you in All Ireland, but it might be worth something. It might... Like, you have to cling to everything when you're chasing a team like Dublin at the moment. And one of the things that makes Dublin great at the moment is this symbolism around Stephen Cluxton. It might be bollocks.
It is.
But
it clearly is.
It's still a thing. You have to try everything at the moment. And I think the idea of having a guy who's playing his first year
it's irrelevant.
Captain, he's actually been on the record and said it affected him.
So then they didn't manage that situation very well.
What do you mean they didn't? How could they manage it otherwise? He was the only Dr. Crokes player on the pitch.
Don't worry about this.
He had to be captain
it's clearly irrelevant.
Rule.
And were the rest of his teammates not standing up and saying, okay, we're actually the leaders of the situation? And I'm sure they've got a leadership group. Show me the other captains who have been like Captain Fantastic and heroic, who have used captaincy as the only thing.
Kieran McGeeney. If you took the captaincy away from Kieran McGeeney,
he was suddenly Samson and shorn of his hair.
I'm not saying that, but it's
irrelevant. Captaincy was irrelevant for McGeeney.
When you think GA captains, you think of Kieran McGeeney. When you think soccer captains, you think Roy Keane.
Soccer, again, largely irrelevant, but Roy Keane was that same leader of Manchester United before he got the captaincy.
And do you know what? There is truth in that. As I say, I'm not saying that this is the reason
our best player.
I'm not saying
when Kenny Cunningham was the Ireland captain, Roy Keane was still our best player and transformed how the team played.
I'm not saying that he's the leader he is because he's a captain. I'm saying that the captaincy gives that little bit of an extra edge. It's certainly a better alternative to the current situation, which is throwing out the captaincy like confetti. It cheapens the entire notion of
it. They have to win the club
and maybe
championship.
It's okay that it's a cheap thing because in your view it doesn't matter. But I think it should be valued with a little bit more
I would just like to see some examples in GA where a player is transformed because of this. And it doesn't happen. That's the point. It is irrelevant.
You see, it's such an intangible thing that you can't just say, well, statistically that team is better because that person was captain. You can't measure this. So I can't give you an example where it's like, I've got the facts here. If you're such an empiricist, then good luck to you, but I believe in a little bit more than that.
All right, John Teagan says, good morning, lads. Today should be called Allison Becker Day. Imagine Koulibaly and Van Dijk in the same team. Is that possible? Will they double down and sign another brilliant centre-back, since it worked really well the last time?
Gomez is back in 6 weeks. I don't think they're going to need one.
A bit of strength and depth.
It'd be
even better, always improving.
An incredible array of options if they sign Koulibaly.
Irish Gary says, Troy Parrott scored away to Barca in the Youth Champions League. The only question is, how sick of winning will we be going forward?
That's a malaise I'm not looking forward
to. Surely if Man United made their money back in 6 months or whatever on the Pogba fee, the buying club would as well. Or is it only United able to do that? Asks Welton Man. Robert Jemison, got involved in a conversation with him, says, might be tougher for another club as other big clubs don't have the same variety of revenue streams as Man United in terms of worldwide marketability. Even Real Madrid doesn't have the same social media branding presence. Maybe Barca and Real Madrid can make the money back. PSG, any Italian club, Bayern couldn't. But look, I think the whole notion that you can't sell Pogba because there's no buyer who can afford him is kind of nonsense. You can give somebody Pogba now on the understanding that they will pay you down the line. All of these teams have enough revenue streams at the moment that they will be able to, at some point in the next 5 to 7 years, which is how you would pay for Pogba anyway. No one pays that money up front. No club gets that cash in one go. It's all staggered payments.
Do you think anyone is starting to believe that Paul Pogba is a bad egg? I wouldn't have necessarily painted him as that. In those quotes from that Portuguese newspaper, Mourinho's agent compares him to Mario Balotelli.
Not his agent, his advisor.
Advisor, sorry.
The comparison with Balotelli is nonsensical.
Exactly, but the more you say something, the more people start to believe it. I do wonder at what point does Paul Pogba's character start to get questioned, because I certainly think it's just a friction between him and Jose Mourinho.
Yeah, in a way, that's not actually the worst thing from Pogba's perspective, is if that takes 25 million off his price, where suddenly he becomes affordable to PSG, obviously he's always affordable to PSG because they have endless money and they can make up some magic new company who's sponsoring their laces, and it's like, oh, we got 150 million for our laces this year, wow, that's amazing. So they can easily afford to do it. But if the Mourinho can't talk Pogba down to the point where suddenly he's available for 60 or 70 or 80 million quid, it's like, well, happy days, keep talking him down, lads, because when we get him, he's going to be really good.
Yeah, it's true. The thing is, does Paul Pogba and his people want him to leave Manchester United? There is a two-way street here when it comes to the brand. Manchester United want the brand of Paul Pogba. Does Paul Pogba want the brand of Manchester United attached to him? I say he probably does.
It'd be better if they were winning stuff, though, wouldn't it?
It would.
That Barca team that played really well last night without Messi, without Suarez, if you were the next iteration of that, if you were the next dream team in the post-Messi era, but you get the last couple of years of Messi and then outlast him, that would not be a bad time to be at Barcelona, would it?
I guess not. The thing is that dream team going to fall in Barcelona? It really could land anywhere at this point. It could very well be Paris. You suspect it might not be, because... Are you
going to be the big dog with Neymar and Mbappe already there?
Well, the thing is, once you sign up to a dream team, you kind of waive your rights to always being the big dog, unless you are Messi or Ronaldo, really. Even from a Neymar perspective, there's always a chance he's not going to be the best player. There's every chance that Kylian Mbappe overtakes Neymar in terms of where we view our players.
They will have a team which is Champions League ready, battle-hardened.
We should apologise to the advertisers, actually. We accused them of false advertising a few weeks ago, saying this will be the only place you'll see Champions League football in London this season, the new White Hart Lane. And we were like, ha, the White Hart Lane didn't even get finished, and they're out of the Champions League. Could it be finished by the round of 16?
I wouldn't be betting
I can hear the clock ticking
on any of those, given that they've missed every deadline so far.
I certainly wouldn't be putting my money on it, but let's just say there's hope for true advertising.
Tonight on Off the Ball on the radio, Champions League, obviously a big night of Champions League action coming your way. Keith Wood is going to be in studio for Wednesday Night Rugby. Simon Cooper on the Ajax Academy and how Dutch legends like Van der Sar are running the club at the moment. Tomorrow morning on OTB AM, Kenny Cunningham is going to join Owen in studio for the morning. Jess Kelly's OTB Christmas gift guide for you, and much more besides. That's live from 7:45 AM. A reminder, of course, that OTB AM is live with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. And that is pretty much all we have time for on the show this morning. And was there anything else we want to talk about?
No.
Did we miss some of the items on our breakfast menu?
No. We've done everything. That horse is dead, and we're consistently flogging it.
You used the Humane Killer on it about half an hour ago, and we hadn't noticed.
The what?
Humane Killer.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, we're not allowed to say flogging a dead horse anymore, actually. That's the thing.
Are you not?
Didn't PETA say that last week?
PETA?
Yeah.
They want to change the language around this stuff.
Yeah, so apologies about that, really.
What are you supposed to say?
I don't know. I like the flogging a dead horse, no matter it is kind of like abuse of an animal. I can't think of any.
Feeding a fed horse.
Oh, feeding a fed horse, yeah. That horse sure has a big belly this morning. And that's how I see it.
Feed 2 birds with 1 scone.
Also, probably copious food there for 2 birds.
Yeah. Be the guinea pig, be the test tube.
That's probably just a grimmer scenario, to be honest.
Bring home the bagels.
I've never heard of that.
Take the flower by the thorns.
It's sickening stuff, really, isn't it? I prefer flogging a dead horse.
Wow, that's grotesque. From that note, Captain Owen Sheehan signs off this morning. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 7:45. Good luck.
OTB AM. Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.